Well, hi there. Welcome. Welcome to a new year. It's 2024. Ooh, baby. Jonathan Foust here. I am delighted to have this time with you. Starting off with the new year, this talk is a little bit on intention. So I'm looking forward to sharing some of this with you. I have my annual review, a time of great humiliation, personal humiliation, and potential growth for myself. And it's a natural time when we stop and sense, what am I doing? So before we launch, traditionally we have our thank yous, and big thank yous to our mindful movement leader, to Rita Moran, and to our mindful dialogue leader, to Ray Manioki. The whole Monday night experience starts at 6:30 Eastern Standard Time with Rita, who will take you through some mindful movement to help release tension, kind of prepare you for meditation in this talk. And afterward, you can join Ray, who offers mindful dialogue, a time to connect with other people, share about your experience. Those links are on my Facebook page and on my website. Also, I'd be remiss not to thank Glenn Harrison, our producer, who ensures this gets flowing out to you, and to the Insight Meditation Community of Washington for hosting this class. I've got a mailing list that's available if you'd like to sign up for a monthly kind of review where I offer my photography for the month, or a weekly where I tell you what's coming up. Just to let you know, all my talks, the whole library, over 500 talks, are on YouTube, Facebook, everywhere fine podcasts are downloaded. YouTube, of course, is kind of big these days. And also just to say thank you for your support. In this tradition, the whole idea is that no one should be denied access to these practices and teachings, and that inspires me. So this is all offered with great joy, and I hope you find all this helpful. And if you feel inspired to help continue to make this possible, thank you so much. And finally, while this talk is about intention and reflection and so forth, I am offering a day-long, it's a Sunday on January 21st, which is a whole day of slowing down, getting a little more inner focused, and then reflecting on your life. What worked this last year? What didn't work? What calls you? It's so important that we take this time to slow down and deeply reflect on what your North Star is in this year ahead. So feel free to join. It's the annual retreat. I've done this for many years running, and really looking forward to it. So in the meantime, let's do a meditation. This will be approximately, about a 12 and a half minute meditation. So when you're ready, you might like to sense how your body might like to move or stretch. Let your body move around. Let out any sound, anything you need to do to allow yourself to be more present. When you're ready, you can close your eyes. And just notice in closing your eyes this natural turning inward that occurs. Closing off the window to the outside world and amplifying your experience of the inner world. And you might just notice where you feel the breath right now. Where does it feel the most predominant? And if you like, for the next 3 breaths, just notice how intimately you can feel the breath. Track the inflow and the outflow. Any moment you are intimately connected to the experience of here and now in the senses, you have truly arrived. And you may find it helpful to assist you in becoming more here and now, to consciously soften and feel from the inside out. Feeling from the inside out, the forehead smooth. Notice if it's possible to soften the little muscles around your eyeballs. And now scanning through the muscles of your face. How much can you allow all expression to melt away? Sensing now the inside of the mouth. In particular, you might relax your tongue. Let your tongue fill your lower jaw and just track this inner felt shift of softening and sensing. Notice if you can feel the volume of your lips. And sensing both inward and down, sensing the space inside your throat. The space inside your lungs as your body breathes. Can you imagine or feel the space between your navel and your spine? And over the next few breaths, how intimately can you feel the breath at the navel and perhaps even below the navel? Can you feel the space between your left hip joint and your right hip joint? And feel now as if you could feel from the inside out, from the hip joints down through the knees. The backs of the knees and the kneecaps. The knees down through the ankles. The tops of the feet and the toes. The soles of the feet. The heels. And as you sense now from the crown of the head down through the soles of the feet, is there anywhere, anything that could relax or soften or let go right now? And is there anything that could relax or soften or let go even more than that right now? Can you sense right now this quality of the witness or the observer, taking the seat of the witness, awake without judgment, without grasping or pushing away, relaxed and alert? You might very gently just sense the breath or the sounds around you as a sort of a tether for your attention. Sensing how intimately you can feel right here at this point of contact with breath or sound vibrations. And you might explore this perception of change. What is changing and shifting in your experience right now? How intimately can you feel it? And is it possible to let things be just as they are? Deeply relaxed, and at the same time alert. From time to time, you might draw your attention back to the breath or sound, and then relax and widen your attention, opening to this field of change and who you are as the one who is aware. And you might explore, if it feels right for you, shifting your attention from any sense of doing and opening more into a sense of being, of simply resting in presence. Nothing to do, nowhere to go. Just simply to be. Deeply, deeply relaxed. At the same time, alert, awake and allowing. Releasing any technique now, let your breath deepen. Let your body move, shift, change in any way that feels good, moving into this time of transition. let out any sounds. And welcome back. It's a story of this minister who has someone in his congregation who's very, very ill, possibly on their deathbed. And before he goes in to give his Sunday sermon, he stops in to visit this person. He's surrounded by family, and it's kind of a very loving scene. This guy has, got an oxygen mask on, and he steps forward to offer a little prayer, little benediction. And as he kind of steps up to the bed, after a while, the guy on the bed starts trying to communicate, kind of like gesticulating, and he leans in. He goes, "Tell me, I know you can't speak, but I'm feeling you, man. I'm just feeling you." And the guy's gesticulating a little more crazily, and finally he starts making a motion like pen, paper. So the minister gives him the pen and paper, and he's kind of scribbles it, and then he just dies. Everyone, of course, is heart-struck, but also glad the preacher was there. And he has to rush off to a sermon, so he takes that piece of paper and puts it in his coat pocket and goes off to deliver his service, and talking about impermanence and death. And he goes, "And I was just with someone recently," and he wrote his final words. And he took the paper out of his pocket and opened it up, and the final words were, "You moron, you're standing on my oxygen tube." Sometimes I write a whole talk just to deliver one joke. So how does this tie into this talk? Well, end of life reflections. There's the classic example of someone who sat with the dying for years and years and years, who said that the number one regret of the dying was, "I wasn't true to myself." And it brings up an interesting question, particularly here as we are starting a new year, ending where we left off, and kind of asking ourselves, how am I doing? And I think a lot of us have a lot of anxiety around this. What does it mean to be true to ourselves? Why do we sell ourselves short? So what I'd like to talk about and share with you is, again, in 4 parts. The first part, the importance of identifying your North Star. Like, what is it that you rely on for guidance? The second is to reflect on the good, the importance of reflecting on your accomplishments, on all the good stuff that happened. And then third, equally important, is to reflect on growth. Like, where was your growing edge? Is there anything you might want to change or shift in your life as you move forward? And finally, to reflect on what calls, to really sense deeply, what is it that's calling you forward? Taking time to slow down and reflect on this, I find to be very, very helpful. So I'm going to share a little bit on these points and a little bit from my own reflection, offer some time for you to reflect during the course of this talk. And then if you're interested, I am doing a day-long retreat on January 21st, where we have a whole day to go deeper into this. So this whole idea of a North Star, when you classically, over the last many, many thousands of years, when you would take off on a sailboat, you would have some star at which you were guiding. Initially, it was just, there's the star, here's where we are in relationship to it, and then, of course, the technology of sextants, and then, of course, GPS positioning and so forth. And the whole idea here is, you've got a direction you're going in, and you understand there are going to be winds, there are going to be currents, there's going to be dramatic weather, But whenever there's a patch of clear sky, you check in with that star to make sure that you are going on course. And it's an important question. At the end of your life, what will have been most important? Well, what is your North Star? What is it that you tune into that helps you to reposition yourself in life? Arthur Brooks, who just wrote a book on happiness, said there are two important questions to ask. Why are you here? And what are you willing to die for? And even just to take a moment and ask yourself, why are you here? We often don't ask that. What are you willing to die for? That's a hard question. And it takes time to sort of get to the essence of that. It's a cathartic question. As I've thought about that sense of my own North Star it's shifted a little bit, but I'm very, very lucky in that as a young kid growing up on a farm, I've talked about this before, I had some early mystical experiences, some very powerful awakening experiences that really did kind of set the course of my life. In many ways, much of my life has been about wanting to get back there to that sense of home, to that sense of wholeness. And of course, as I grew up, I explored through different avenues, through sex and drugs and a little rock and roll. I'm very fortunate to have found meditation at age 15. Very fortunate to have made my way to a spiritual community, as flawed as it was and I was. And fortunate to find a way to immerse myself in practice. And what I've noticed is that my own sense of wanting to be more awake in my life, I've been dueling with the three poisons of the mind. In classic Buddhist teaching, one of those poisons of the mind that makes it impossible to be fully present is the presence of greed, the ongoing desire, the thirst for more, thirst for different. The second poison of the mind is hatred or aversion, the moving away from pain, moving away from perceived unpleasantness. The third poison of the mind is delusion or confusion. It's being caught in believing things are true when they're really not, or believing things aren't true when they really are. And so my life, fumbling and bumbling along, but also growing. I love that phrase from, I think, thousands of years ago. I forget who wrote it. That just said, another year, same foolish monk. I so relate to that. But one of the North Stars for me that got instilled pretty early was this idea of service as a spiritual path. The idea of seva, of selfless service, seemed like the highest of ideals. Be fully present to your life, set aside your ego, and try to do good. Make everyone around you look good. Be a helper. And I noticed that when I could do that, it was pretty blissful. It gave me a sense of satisfaction, accomplishment, connection, and of course, loss of bruises and attachments, the self-inflation, self-deflation along the way when I became more egocentric. But this path of selfless service I held very, very close to my heart as the North Star, and you can't go wrong with that. However, I was one of the first people to go through a program at Johns Hopkins of exploring the effect of high-dose psilocybin on long-term meditators. I've shared about this before, but it was a very, very powerful journey. I had some tremendous insights, and at the very end, I found myself saying with my guides, they're with me, I said, it's all about service. It's all about service. And then there was this long pause. And then just coming up from really deep inside me was, and that's just another story. The story, the concept of service, it rang a little hollow. So it refreshed that question for me. What is the most important thing to me now? And it's about being awake. It's about seeing clearly into the nature of reality, to see what's true and to see what's not true. And I think that's the North Star for me now in my life. That doesn't mean I'm cloistering myself. But I keep coming back to the Bodhisattva prayer, which Tara and I took on as part of our wedding vows. May whatever arise serve the awakening of heart and mind and be of benefit to all. May whatever arise serve the awakening of heart and mind and be of benefit to all. May I see what's true, and may that in some way be a benefit to myself and those around me. I've taken refuge in that many, many times as I've worked my own reactivity, as I've worked my own stuff, as I've been kind of focused on unraveling my own conditioning, raveling the sense of the imprints that I believed were true when I came into this life. So I worked on my annual review, my year in review, the last number of years. I've been doing it for a while. I've changed the format a little bit. It's a little bit less, I'm going to make this happen, and a little more, here's my intention, let's see what happens. I think I might be maturing a little bit. So reflecting on the good. It's so important because, of course, we have this intense negativity bias, and reflecting on the good helps us to increase our capacity for happiness. And I love the whole idea of positive psychology and this principle of PERMA, which is a really great way to reflect on your life. PERMA. Having access to positive emotion in your life. Being engaged in a wholesome way in your life. Relationships that are significant to you. Having a sense of meaning in your life. And having a sense of accomplishment. And it's also interesting as you look for the good, excuse me, to remember we're looking at what's real. There is a way of just looking at the good that's sort of like magical thinking and not looking at the other side. But when I look for the good in this last year, a happy whole home life that I love. I've been blessed with really, really good health. I work at it. I'm passionate about my vegan lifestyle and the effect of what that can do for each of us personally, but also on the planet. A huge amount of creativity this last year, which to me is like it's just the top of the charts. The gift of being able to create. I've also focused a lot on simplifying this last year. As Adyashanti said, no one ever got enlightened by adding anything in their life. And I'm finding the more I can let go, the more space there is in my life. I remember in the farmhouse where I grew up, we had this, my mother had a poster at the kind of the bottom of the stairwell that said, a man is rich in proportion to the number of things he can afford to let alone. And that's been significant. Maybe part of aging, maybe a little more emotional maturity, but just letting go of things has been very, very powerful and joyful. I've had a lot of joy teaching this year, of doing this podcast, doing kind of a weekly offering has been really fulfilling, and I'll say more about that. Some cool teaching on the road, leading retreats, leading some intensives, been really great. And a lot of savoring, really loving time in nature. That's what works for me almost better than anything. Having time with beloveds, out there paddling and hiking and biking and all that stuff. So a question for you. What worked for you this year? What are you grateful for as you think about this last year? And there's a little thing here I'd just like to speak of. There's a question that some people have trouble with. And that is, what are you most proud of in your life? And pride, of course, has a negative connotation, but I guess the secondary question is, what have you accomplished this last year that gives you a deep sense of satisfaction? I'm just going to give you 30 seconds to reflect on that. What have you accomplished that just feels good on the inside? It's important, I think, to really reflect on that. Martin Seligman, when he reworked positive psychology based on the research, that fifth element of accomplishment is one very, very important. It's where you engage and you have a sense of satisfaction, a sense of growing. So to really reflect on what you accomplished this last year that fills you with a sense of well-being, and to make room for it, to feel it, to think, reflect on why that's important. Really important stuff. Making peace with accomplishment, embracing it and seeing it as a really healthy aspect of living a full life is a really helpful reflection. And yet, if you focus just on the good without acknowledging the growth and the challenges, that's incomplete. So it becomes a very interesting question. What grew you this last year? It's your challenges that grow you. I think I may have shared this story before, but just as a little example of growth, I have a very, very good friend who's, by all means, very successful in the world, very engaged, runs a very, very big operation, complex operation in New York City. And he's extremely dyslexic. He was undiagnosed. He never read a book in high school, never read a book in college, went on to get his MBA. And again, lots of trouble reading, so he didn't bother, but he developed a skill in getting a big picture and finding other people to accomplish it. He became a very, very good delegator. And it's very interesting now that in his office, he's got a small little computer. He takes no notes. He doesn't read email. Everything he does is in person and on the phone. And he manages hundreds and hundreds of people. And what's interesting is, because his capacity for reading, he never developed it fully, he developed an amazing memory, an incredible accounting of detail, and a really powerful way of reading people and finding what their motivations are and being able to match people with different tasks. And I asked him, when you make presentations to boards of trustees raising huge amounts of money, how do you do it if you don't read? And he said, I memorize it. What's so interesting is the challenges that he faced somehow grew into superpowers. So a question for you, and if you like, you can close your eyes. You might take 3 slow breaths. What would you say were your 3 biggest challenges this year? And how did they grow you? What are your biggest challenges right now? And how would you say these challenges are growing you right now? If you like, you can deepen your breath. As I've done my own assessment this year, there are a number of things that produced growth opportunities for me. You may be familiar with the 3 Buddhist personality types. I was talking earlier about the 3 poisons of the mind, of greed, hatred, and delusion. We tend to gravitate toward one of these primarily. It's very interesting. If you're like a greed type, there can be on the one side a sense of creativity, of seeing possibilities, of seeing the big picture. You're kind of a yes to life. The shadow side of that is you may find yourself chasing things. You may find yourself kind of run by those desires and getting a little bit ungrounded. If you're more of the hatred aversive type, chances are you're really, really good at seeing what's not a match. You have very, very good distinctions around how to get things done because you can see and can predict the obstacles that might show up. So the discernment that you develop can be really, really powerful. But again, the shadow side is it can hold you back from moving forward. And if you're the delusional type, you're really fun at parties. There's just the sense of seeing possibility and being very, very open. The shadow side is that you can feel really ungrounded and feel really disconnected. So as the poster boy for the greed type, I've noticed most of my year in reviews, as I look toward what's next, were about really gunning for goals. I've been aware of this for a long time, but I've also been aware of how I haven't had much control over that. I love the upside of it. I love the creativity and seeing possibilities, but the downside is, of course, that I can scatter my attention. I don't think through my goals really well. And this sense of pushing and grasping. So this last summer, I thought, you know what? Enough. Instead of trying to make life happen, I'm going to let life come to me. This was my experiment. I'm just going to let life come to me. And with that was some paranoia. Like, well, what if nothing happens? What if I'm just sitting here and there's no push, there's no pull? I'll just become static. But then a good friend said, hey, I'd love you to offer a course here in New York City, and then afterward we'll do this adventure. And it was like, well, yes, that sounds great. It's a really amazing institution, and to support people and waking up and offering what I offer and an adventure. Absolutely. Big yes. Someone else said, hey, it would be really, really cool to do this intensive on this topic I'm passionate about. Would you be interested in doing that? It's like, wow, to have that opportunity to put together a curriculum and deliver it. Absolutely, I'm on for it. Another invitation. Hey, love to fly you out to Colorado to give this talk and lead an experience for this group of people. The topic is topic of fascination for me. Wow, what a great creative thing. Absolutely. Suddenly, I was busier than I had been when I was pushing. And I realized, you know what? I need to moderate this too. So finding that balance between making life happen, letting life happen, it's something we're all working with. But some of the growth opportunities for me, out of my I can do anything but not make it happen, I failed to create a product that I was passionate about creating. I've been wanting to create kind of a companion program for people in chronic pain, offering different attentional strategies. I've given some podcasts in the talk, but someone said, like, this would be to have a series of experiences and explain how these work would be terrific. I didn't do it. I've outlined it. I have the course sort of planned out, but I didn't do it. Also, part of my tendency toward just creative is reading about the kind of the key to creativity is just keep producing. It's a numbers game. So that's kind of what I've focused on, is just keep pumping stuff out. The end result of that is I've been producing but not curating. So with the 500 or so talks I have online, they're not indexed. It's really hard for anyone to get access to them. The thousands of photographs I shoot, they're not indexed either. There are no keywords. So if I'm looking for one, I've got to go back and sort through. So I haven't organized there. Another area that I've noticed where maybe there could be more growth is moving online from COVID is really nice for me, but maybe it's too comfy. Recently, I led an in-person retreat, and I kind of forgot how powerful it is to be live and engaged, and that's something I want to look at. Moderating my busyness and making sure my busyness is really moving me forward. It's easy for me because I'm kind of a one-man band to kind of get caught up in the details. I'm also aware of looking at how do I numb out in unwholesome ways. I'm not a gamer. I'm not addicted to any substances. I don't have an Instagram account. I don't have a TikTok account. I don't spend time on Facebook. I don't rarely watch TV or more movies. But my Achilles heel is YouTube. Maybe it's because I grew up with a black and white TV that only got 1.5 stations. I never had a TV. But there's something stupefyingly addictive about YouTube. It's this definition of how entertainment is paying someone to run your mind. And I'm appalled at how I'll just fall into that very, very predictable addictive pattern of just scanning through and getting little hits of endorphins. And it's a very superficial way to entertain my mind. And in a way, it's sort of calming. It can be a little bit of a treat after I'm doing something really focused, but I'd like to understand that better. In the same way, being aware of reading. One of my favorite things is going to bed with a New Yorker. And how much of it is engaging, how much of it is, again, kind of a way of numbing out. So if I were to take those hours and apply them doing something different, that's something worth exploring for me. The other question that I have as I look toward growth is, am I doing enough? Every one of us, of course, has that question, but it comes down to, in PERMA, P-E-R-M-A, engagement. What is the right amount of engagement? I'm at the age where many people retire. I'm as busy as I've ever been. And part of the question is really assessing, is what I'm offering a benefit? And is that just another story? But how am I holding back my light? Maybe that's the question. Werner Erhard had this great phrase where he said, what you really need to ask yourself is, knowing that you and everyone you know is going to die in no particular order, what calls you? And that, to me, is a very, very important question. Knowing that you and everyone around you is going to die in no particular order, what calls you? And I'm aware of how much that has called me in the past has come from a place of propelling my ego forward. We talk about the 8 worldly winds in this practice. We're looking for wins, we're looking for pleasure, we're looking for fame, we're looking for success. And of course, we're also looking to avoid the opposite. So Arthur Brooks came up with this very interesting thing where he calls the reverse bucket list, where you make a list of all your desires. And of course, I've done this my whole life. I write down my goals. But of course, what happens is when you write down that goal, you're actually setting yourself up for feeling like you're falling short. And chances are you've got a to-do list that's longer than you could humanly get to. Or you've got desires in your life, your bucket list, that seems impossible. And that's kind of a neurological problem. It reinforces the sense of satisfaction that will come from having more. So this becomes an interesting way to investigate, and it might be something you might want to experiment with. And then it's to write down your bucket list, the goals, the things that you want to get done. And I've done this. I found it to be very interesting. You write down all your goals and then cross them off. And there's something really, really powerful about that. Because by crossing them off, you're crossing off the attachment to the goal. You're not run by the ghost in your head saying, if this doesn't happen, then it means I failed. What it means is, it might happen, and it might not happen, and I'm going to be okay. No one got enlightened by adding anything. That is such a radical, radical statement. So it comes back to the North Star. Ram Dass tells this story, doing some intense chemical research with a friend. And his friend declared, from now on, I'm just going to be. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to be. I'm like, wow, man, that's pretty awesome. A little later, he got up to make himself a sandwich. And Ram Dass said, hey, wait a minute. I thought you said you were going to do nothing. You were just going to be present. He said, yeah, man, I'm being present and doing nothing while I'm making a sandwich. That's just an interesting reflection. Back to being on the deathbed. When many people get the word that they're terminal, that they've got a short, predictable time ahead of them, many people don't take that occasion to go on cruises or go gambling. What they tend to do is to choose what they're doing, what they're already doing, and do it from a different point of view. And so it opens up a really interesting question. And this question is, what calls you? I've always loved this principle, and we can only tap into it when we've really filtered and shifted our consciousness. This whole concept of choiceless choice. When you explore the options in your life, and you can filter down, sifting through the desires, the aversions, the delusion, what you're believing that isn't true, what you're believing is true, and you get to that place of, okay, I have lots of options, but not really. That there's something here that I can't not do. That's a place to cultivate, and that's a place to explore. What does it mean for you to be in that place where, of all the options I have, I can't not do this? So it brings me back to this whole concept in Buddhist philosophy of the bodhisattva ideal. And that is waking up in relationship with the world. Waking up inside, offering the fruit of that to all beings, and exploring what it means to be free from suffering, to be free from greed, to be free from hatred, to be free from delusion, and to be active in the world. So when I reflect on what calls me, it is about waking up. It is about seeing more clearly into the nature of reality. And how do I do that? Part of it is having an inner practice. An inner practice that's rich. Part of that is relationships that mirror back possibilities for being more alive in my life. Looking for opportunities to engage, and looking for opportunities to disengage. I talked a lot about this idea of the pathless path, which I really feel is ultimately all we have. There are times when we're drawn to a path that has very tight riverbanks, and that can be really helpful because it keeps you focused. You bounce into this river bank and it brings you back. It's like when a plane is following a beacon on autopilot. It's constantly readjusting. That's important. But the pathless path ultimately comes down to, what is your experience right now? And how are you called to respond to this moment? So just as we can't make intuition happen, we can't make enlightenment happen, all we can do is really cultivate the most appropriate experiences for it to happen. For me, I see this year ahead as giving myself a little more space. Can I let life come to me? Can I be open enough to wisely respond to what comes? Can I be comfortable with being fallow for days or weeks? That's an edge. Can I continue to simplify and make more room for presence? Can I deepen my attention and at the same time fill my cup so I have the energy and aliveness to respond to life? And at the same time, I predict a pretty engaging year ahead. I intend to continue with these talks. That's like about 48 talks a year this year ahead. I will be offering some retreats, some live, which will be fun. I do intend to work that series on being with pain, that pain companion. That's something I can't not do, and I'm taking some steps to do that in the next month or so. I do some work one-on-one with people when I can. That's engaging and feels wholesome. I am considering offering another year of living mindfully. It's been such a satisfying experience on so many levels in the past. So in the fall, That's something I'm looking forward to as a possibility. And again, to stay open. So this whole idea of PERMA, perhaps just a little reflection here in these last maybe 4 minutes. You might close your eyes if you like and just sense what it means for you to have positive emotion in your life. What would help you to cultivate more of this sense of positive, uplifting emotion? What for you would be the right level of engagement in life? Not over-engaged, but not disengaged. Is there anything in your life in the realm of relationships that you would like to shift or adjust? What is the level of intimacy and connection? And what would you be open to as you move forward? Sensing as well this quality of meaning in your life. What to you is significant? Why are you here, and what are you willing to die for? And sensing as well this realm of accomplishment. What calls you that would feel good inside, to engage, to learn, to grow? And you might explore this following question. This again from Werner Erhard. If nothing means anything, including this statement, what calls you? You might take a moment just to sense one thing you're grateful for in your life. One person, one thing, one event. As you think about this, as you stream attention to it, can you just sense what that feels like inside? Bringing into mind a second thing, a second person, an event, a thing in your life that you appreciate, fills you with gratitude. And over the next 3 breaths, just sense if you can feel that. Now bringing into mind a third thing, a third person, a third event in your life. Over the next 3 breaths, imagine that feeling, feel that feeling, let it grow. Now sense if you can feel the simultaneity of these 3 things, and let it expand if it can. Think of all the ways in your life you've been blessed, all the unexpected serendipity things that have happened in your life, all the ways you've been blessed. Sensing how your greatest challenges have grown you in powerful and dynamic ways. And sensing, just for a moment, what would you say is the most important thing in your life right now? no words come, that's okay. You might just allow space for that to arise. And if you have a sense of what's most important, taking a moment to acknowledge it. Sensing this possibility of this North Star as a guiding light. When you're ready, you can deepen your breath. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes if they're not open already. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention. So many blessings into this new year. It's a joy and an honor to be sharing this wild ride. Happy trails.